And the flooding is part of the severe weather event. It is part of the
Yes, it
setup.
is.
So if you are in that area of the flash flood watch, you need to take it seriously because
Yeah.
it is not common to have a PDS flood watch. Now I've
Absolutely
been
not.
looking.
No.
I
Now I've been
sorry.
looking at the models for the severe weather,
Sure.
and there's multiple things to take note.
Yeah.
There is a
Yeah.
issue with the severe weather, and I'm gonna mention something.
All right. Go
On
ahead.
the
While
one
you're doing
hand,
that, I'm gonna pull up something Radar Bolt just sent me, and
okay,
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna open it real
okay,
quickly. How do
mhm,
I? Okay. How do I? Okay. Open in browser. All right. Yeah. This is the jet that we're looking at. The forecasted jet. Right
the jet.
here, I'm pulling right up right here. We're seeing a massive jet streak from Ohio all the way down to Alabama right here. This is modeled from the NAM, but I wanted to highlight this to you guys. Check severe weather discussion if you want to take a
Yeah.
closer look at it.
Yes.
That is very concerning, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Um, this doesn't look like it's going to be as much cape driven as it is shear driven, and that's very
Actually,
worrisome.
that's what I wanted to talk about
Yeah, go
because
ahead.
there have been some alarming uptrends.
Hmm.
Um, First off, Cape has increased a bit,
All right.
so let's get that out now. Now, Cape, the warm sector has grown a little bit more north and a little bit wider too.
Okay,
So
that's
now we got a
concerning.
wide warm sector. Here is the catch, however.
Okay.
The models keep indicating, and this is the one thing that might limit tornado potential. That's why there's been such a question of supercells.
Yeah.
The confluence bands are set up along the northern Mississippi to western Tennessee, and then there's another area of some prefrontals possible along central Louisiana moving east.
Yeah, I'm
Here's your
looking at it
question.
right here on the her.
Here's your question. How fast is your cold front versus the direction of the supercells? That will
Yep.
tell us what will happen tomorrow.
Oh yeah, for sure. What I'm looking
Now,
at
Yeah.
right here, the zero Z her is out, Tristan. In case you didn't see, at least enough to
I'll
get a
keep
general
looking at
gist
it.
of
It's
it.
not
Take.
another always. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
In fact, I got my TV up right now looking at it.
All right. That's good. I'm looking at this right now. It looks like the confluence those bands form in Texas, Arkansas, and extreme northwestern Louisiana near Shreveport. So we'll have to see how that pans out. I just figured I'd mention that to you.
But
Go ahead and continue.
here's the interesting thing, Pat.
Sure.
There are two sides of this where you can say, "Oh, it will stay enhanced." There's another side that will say it will go moderate.
Yeah,
On the
I
one hand,
agree.
as more prefrontals develop, or if the QLCS is better at tornado producing than initially realized, we could have a moderate. Because here's a good example: December 28th last year,
Yep.
only two supercells formed. Everyone thought it failed. And it suddenly went
Yep.
45% normal on us
Mm-hmm.
with
Yep.
all those QLCS tornadoes. But on the other hand, it's a very interesting because I watch Convective Chronicles. Amazing dude, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
The
Great
line
dude.
is
Great dude.
linear.
What's up?
The line is kind of more linear, but
Oh
it
yeah.
also shows comma head features. So it's a very confusing situation. Do you go for the moderate? Do you stay in and hit? Now, I think 30 sig win would be the right call here.
Let me
Yeah.
That
check.
QL is
Yeah, yeah,
amazing
30
in
sig wind.
structure.
I could definitely see that, especially if that squall
Yeah.
line is stronger than anticipated.
But then the question becomes, what about the tornadoes? Because you have a weird case of your warm sector got better, but your confluence bands is too close to the cold front. Your trough got better, but it's still aligned with the cold front. So I wonder where Brendan's opinion on this is, but it's a very tough call on the tornadoes right now.
I would
Yeah,
like to mention that.
Brendan,
Can
what?
I talk? Sorry.
Who
Sorry.
wants to talk?
I mean,
All right, go ahead, Rockets.
I can. Okay. I could probably demonstrate why the confluence band are not doing better, even though the trough is doing better. I think the inversion, the dry air that limited last event is here present too, and it's probably gonna maybe limit that event to at least like moderate hatched. It might not even do anything, just because of that 700 millibar inversion.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's still there, but the NAM had it that last event, and it killed the it killed the Louisiana supercells. Of course, Mississippi
Yeah.
popped off, but that's
Yeah.
But
that's my that I'm sorry.
Oh, go
Rockets,
ahead.
go.
Finish. I do open
Yeah.
wounds.
Rockets,
That's
do you
my
have more to
main.
say?
I just have one more thing, and
Go ahead,
you
go ahead.
guys can go. That's my main concern with this event. Again, that's
But
like,
here's
will
the
it? Will
Oh.
all right, you can go. No, you can go, Tristan. You can go.
Okay.
But here's the question: even though there's a 700 version, this is where it gets complicated with the tornado threat. The shear and the QLCS can just spam, and we all know comma heads are capable of EF2 plus tornadoes.
Yeah.
Any threat of a prefrontal that matures will also be a cyclic threat. See, now we're starting to get into the questions and the confusion.
Yeah, I'm
What do we
looking.
do?
Yeah, while you're doing that, I'm looking at the Raps 21Z trough placement just to kind of see what we're looking at. Yeah, this is going to be a bit of an issue. The shear is definitely stronger than what we would have liked to see. The Cape's catching up to it as well. The main question is how fast is that cold front going to move through, and how far north is the snow going to be in order for this to really get to its full potential? That's the main
And
question I have.
Pat,
Go ahead.
Pat, I want Brendan to kind of, if he can, I don't know
Yeah,
if
I'll
he wants
get to him in
to.
a second,
I
but Kitten Goes Crazy. Do you want to add something to this?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So speaking on the shear, I was looking at the 0Z HRRR, and I'm noticing in some sections of like, especially like later on in the day, Saturday,
Mhm.
we're getting like up to 70 knots of surface to 6 kilometer shear.
70
Oh my
knots.
So
god.
yeah, up to 70 knots
Wow.
in some locations. It's quite crazy.
That for
Was that
any
was
type
that
of
more than
any
last minute?
severe weather, that's pretty concerning. But especially in February, that is
Oh.
wow.
Shear is pretty dominant in February and trade for low Cape. These values don't surprise me as much
Yeah.
in a way, especially with the way the trough is. It would you would expect maybe with a neutral trough to have some good amounts of shear, but it's not really dominant in a way too. It's kind of a weird situation.
Yeah.
Brendan, what are your thoughts on the severe weather? Like I
Yeah.
explained,
Go.
the
Yeah.
confluence bands are too close. We
Mhm.
don't know where the cold front is, but then prefrontals can form. It's kind of confusing, I
Yeah.
would
For
think.
sure. All right, Brendan, go ahead and give your thoughts on this.
Yeah, well, so there was a lot of. I definitely wanted to say I agree with everybody's take on it thus far, and it's a broken record with the golf, right? This has been something that we always talk about. It's timing and precipitation in the morning, right? Or confluence bands. It's just welcome to a golf severe weather setup, like every time for the most
Yeah.
part. But the thing to consider, and I think it was a great call out by the gentleman before me who was talking about the 0 to 670 knot shear.
Yeah.
That's
Kitten
critical,
Goes Crazy.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And so to me, we have to also remember that I think a lot of times it's easy for us to get caught up in the structure. It's easy for us to go, okay, well, are we going to have supercell development, which is important, right? Especially for golf setups, because that can really have a significant role in the overall event itself. But if we're going to be talking about, more of this QLCS setup, I mean, remember, from a climatological point of view, this is an area that is heavily susceptible to QLCS induced tornadoes.
Yes.
So when I see 0 to 6, I mean, now granted, I'm just taking one variable here, right? But if we take the whole environmental setup as it is, I would make the argument, and I think my biggest concern is when we go to tomorrow, how many of those are going to be prolific tornado producers in the line? The big question to me, which a lot of folks have highlighted in this conversation, is the timing of the front. If this front moves too fast and at the wrong time, that could really kill the event.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's really what this comes down to. But if we get the timing to match up, which I know is such a broken record in meteorology, timing is really everything in any event. But if we really get the timing to match up here, my biggest concern is the QLCS tornado producer. That could be a problem, right? Minus any supercells that forms in the open sector itself.
Yeah.
So-
While you're
I
talking.
would also like to say here that the damage you win to QCS tornadoes would actually be a threat too. Even if the tornadoes fail, what about the trees going down on mobile homes? It's dark to salvage forestry. You're not gonna see a threat.
Okay,
That's
this
true.
is interesting. Sorry to cut you off, guys, but I just pulled up a rap sounding for 21Z tomorrow near the Louisiana-Mississippi border. The Cape is around 2,000. The shear at surface to 1 kilometer is 33 knots.
Oh, that's
Oh
not
my
good.
god.
The
That's not
SRH
that's
is
concerning.
at 211 at 1 kilometers. For those
And
of you
gentlemen,
who don't
gentlemen
know what
has
SRH is, that's not. Let me explain it this way. If you see 211 at surface to 1 kilometers, that's typically what you don't want to see if you don't want severe weather. I'll just put it at that to simplify everything. What's curious
Rapid
though is the surface to 6 kilometer shear on this sounding is 36 knots. So it's 33 to 36, and it does appear more directional.
Hmm.
So we'll see what happens. But
What's
will-
the 700 millibar look 700 dryer looking like on that sounding? Because I've not checked the wrap at all.
yeah, let me go ahead and
I
open
actually
it
got
into a new
press to
tab
read
just to
that,
do that
actually.
and copy this. Check live
I got
mode,
a way
Mike. I'll
to
show it to you
read.
guys.
I got a way to read the dry air.
There you go. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead and take a look at the sounding real quickly.
I got data from Jackson, Mississippi.
Yeah.
If you want to go to the link I said in No Mike, it is the Storm Prediction Center soundings that they do every so often.
Okay.
This is the 0D soundings that just came out somewhat.
All right. I'll take a quick peek.
There's one in Jackson. There's one in New Orleans.
Yeah,
there's
I
one
saw
in
it.
Birmingham.
I'm looking at the Jackson one right now. There's definitely some dryness around 600, 550 millibars. I'm looking.
Lapse rates is about, what is that at the surface? 4.0 kilometers Celsius per
Yeah.
That's
for a
rough.
night.
That's like the
but
the
it's the
directional
night
shear is crazy though. We're at 90
Yeah.
degrees.
That's true though. It might be enough. It'll depend though. It'll be close. Like last time we had that storm. Sorry, I had to interrupt. But when we had the last time of that storm, we had decent last week, but we saw the dry air. But the what's it called? The jet stream came in and enhanced during the nighttime. And it was just enough to produce probably strong tornadoes. We'll have to see the
And that's the thing that I want to point at. And this is what happens. People won't get tornadoes during the afternoon while you see in the plains. And everyone will say in Dixie is a bust event until you get the nighttime when the low-level jet strikes.
Mhm.
When that low-level jet strikes, you got to run.
Oh,
Because we have
okay,
seen...
I'm going to interject a second, real quick. Hey, Tristan. So, okay, Kitten, was it you that mentioned the dryer?
No, I was
that
the
was me. That was me.
I was the shear.
That was
you.
me.
Okay, sorry, my bad.
That was me.
What level are we talking on the dryer?
I don't remember. I mean, was it 700
about
700 millibars?
We
or
were looking at
500?
the 700 for the 700 millibar level
To
for dry
500?
air.
Yeah.
700. Okay. Because the one thing is that consistent throughout. Like, is that just one area, or is that consistent in multiple areas?
I get you from Louisiana.
Okay,
New Orleans, Louisiana, it's at the 600 there.
Oh,
there's not much
air's
dry.
definitely drier in New Orleans. That
All right.
Yeah, that drop off is at around 700 in NOLA.
And what time
in
is that at?
Jackson, it's starts around 650, 625.
All right.
Night. Okay.
Okay.
Well, so here's this is my concern, because if I'm thinking correctly, just purely on a straight line wind threat, ideally you wouldn't want dryer, because that's going to ruin the and guys, please clean me up on this. I believe it's called entrainment.
Yeah.
I think that's the concept, which we won't get into. Clean me up offline if I'm wrong on that definition. But the idea that, again, you got that rain cooled air that does help with cold pooling.
Yep.
Which then help to create sort of the outflow itself. If you got too much dry air entrainment here, that I wonder if that limits the wind potential a bit.
You're right.
I hope so.
Well, but I want to be careful though, because we have to also remember this is a very strong cold front. So what I'm ultimately trying to say, it would likely limit the cold pooling or sort of these Boeing kinks within the line if we have too much dry air entrainment. But the cold front itself within the broader line should still be able to produce, I would think, up to at least severe weather threshold winds. But I'm just wondering if it limits the local potential of any stronger winds beyond that 60 to 70 threshold.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, guys? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, hammerhead features along the line. They can suddenly enhance that a little bit and ignore that dry air.
Actually, Fancy, I do want to ask you something.
Sure.
Mm,
We'll just
Do you think it's a good idea
discuss
to
seamlessly,
really
but yeah,
wait to see
those are morning soundings. Yeah.
what the morning observations is going to show?
Oh, of course. Yeah, because I mean, the dry air component's critical, right? I think that's
Yeah.
really the basis of the conversation right now. So absolutely. And that also for the Gulf too, it's so important because if you look back to any severe weather event in the deep south over these last several years, it ultimately does come down to that. And the SPC has that same mindset too, Tony. Right now, I don't expect them to pull a moderate until we see what the morning ops show. That has always been the approach of the SPC for as long as I can remember, especially if we're talking about the conversation of a categorical upgrade.
Yeah.
And especially because, Tristan's talked about confluence bands, we've talked about dry air, and all the other different components of this setup. You really don't have an opportunity to know that until the morning, especially in analyzing not just the soundings, Tony, but the clearing too. If we were to, let's say, have an open sector, right, that changes the
Right.
game too. If we were to have less dry air, well, now we're having a conversation about even locally higher damaging wind gusts possible with some of those Boeing kinks. And even, of course, as we saw with Cape, we're seeing Cape uptrend now on the models. If we're seeing that on our observed soundings with our Cape doing well and performing as expected, our Hodos doing well with some of the veering components, then now we're having a conversation about more embedded soups, right? So a lot of these questions that we have tonight, yes, they will likely be answered in tomorrow's morning observations.
Yeah.
What about the?
What
Has anybody looked at the convection coming off of the Gulf?
Let me look at
That's
that.
kind of what we were
yeah,
talking about.
Yeah, we're
fire
kind of, yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm
It's
seeing
the-
it. I know what you're talking
yeah.
about, Tony.
Tristan was
SPC
kind of
Oh
touching on that.
yeah. Yeah,
The
yeah.
FCC said that they might actually put an enhanced risk for part of southern Mississippi, Alabama, the Florida Panhandle, and Louisiana because of some prefrontal supercell / some confluence coming from the Gulf. That's actually also seen on the HRRR model really well. So yes, we're watching that too. Actually, Fire.
Yeah, I wanted to get to that because that was something I noticed on there that I think we might get some stuff over there in Louisiana
Yeah.
ahead of all this.
Yeah.
Position right now for any good supercells would be I'm southern Mississippi to central Louisiana in some way, or that confluence area that develops between Memphis, Tennessee, and Tupelo, Mississippi.
Mhm.
At short term, that would be your best chance for strong tornadoes. And then you go into the comma heads along the line later on, plus any prefrontals that are able to use the sector well.
Yeah.
I
For
think
sure.
that's your best chance for strong tornadoes.
Yeah, I've been watching it as well. I will say if that does happen, we continue to see that those signs pop up in the HER with what the 0Z HERs going forward. I am very concerned for this because not only actually I want to check something real quickly. I didn't catch this. I know it's a bit arbitrary to look at this right now, but I want to take a look at the supercell composite and the SIG-TOR parameter just to kind of get a general gist as to
Ooh.
kind of what's going on. Okay, that's
They're high.
it's really
yeah.
the HER's really blowing up the supercell composite across southern Tennessee, Arkansas, and Mississippi. That's
But
interesting.
again, here's the
Well,
question:
and also,
what would conditions
if I-
really be
yeah.
if the temperature goes too fast?
I want to see this precip.
I want to even make a comment too as
Sure.
you're going through that, Pat.
Yeah.
With Tor parameter, especially,
Yeah.
recall for those folks watching and for those in the call, we are emphasizing it's pretty shear heavy
Yes.
parameter.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. It
I
is.
believe it also
Yeah,
does take
yeah.
into account Cape. It does take into account Cape, but it's taking into account a lot of low level processes with your helicity and your shear.
Yep.
So if we have a high shear, if we're expecting a high shear environment, we would expect the SIG-TOR to be high, right, for the most part, because that's going to skew it. I'm just saying, I mean, again, good call out, Pat. I just want to make that point that, especially these parameters in a high shear, low cape environment, we got to be really careful because they're going to be elevated. Doesn't necessarily mean we're going to see EF5s.
No.
We're not expecting
I-
any SIG-4s themselves,
I
right? Or
agree with that
EF4s.
generally. I'm just looking at that just to kind of get a comparison to the 12Z and the 18Z.
Sure. No, I get you.
Just
Yeah,
to take
exactly.
a look at it and see what the parameters are looking like. Okay, this is interesting right here. It seems that at least compared to the 12C, they have downtrended a little bit the SIG-TOR and Supercell composite, but considering we're seeing some developments with more moisture coming off the Gulf, with all these bands forming, it's going to be very tough. I do think that if they issue a moderate, this is a very big if. It's not going to be for tornadoes, but mainly straight line winds. And the reason why is because you're looking at this type of system that we're looking at. It's organizing and developing. This is not exactly the most favorable for long-tracked supercells unless they move and strike early, like 2:00 in the afternoon. So they start developing, and they start developing over Louisiana and Mississippi. This is going to be very squall heavy right here. Not saying tornadoes are not going to be a risk. They absolutely are, especially those embedded cells that Brendan and Tristan were talking about previously. But this is going to be, if they do issue a moderate risk, it's going to be more for straight line winds than for tornadoes. But hey, I could wake up tomorrow and I could be completely wrong about that. This is just my conjecture right here. What are your guys' thoughts of that?
The problem would be for the moderate for damaging winds that they always like to go SIG, even though in this situation,
Sure.
especially with the dry air Brendan talked about,
Yeah.
I would rather
Mhm.
have the damaging wind. What is that moderate? That it was. Let me see what wind. The moderate would be a 45 normal, right? No, it wouldn't be. It would be
Wow. No, right?
that would still be an enhanced, but you know what I would in this situation, I would go 45 normal because the dry air might limit more significant damaging winds,
Yeah.
but because of the system, we make the widespread 60 to 70.
The
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
the only reason why I disagree is because ultimately it comes back to the cold front. If they were to go, sort of a higher risk for
That's
wind, it
true.
would be a SIG, and a higher probability. So, I want to, I guess, maybe clarify, Tristan, for what I'm trying to get at here is, the dry air would really limit the localized potential of enhanced winds other than what the cold front's going to be able to provide, right? So, broadly speaking, it would make sense to go SIG here just from the cold front strength itself and the wind vectors there, right?
Yeah, that's true.
60 to 70 is certainly not out of the question, but I'm really talking about the danger of any sort of localized Boeing segment embedded within the line that would produce locally higher values, right? 80 plus, right? That's what I'm concerned about. And especially as we talk about an area like Mississippi, highly vulnerable to wind. Um, I think the SBC, I would think, would want to make clear to folks that are already incredibly vulnerable to straight line winds themselves that, hey, this is a significant risk. And of course, let me be clear, the SBC does not forecast on vulnerability, but I think it would just make sense from a communication point of view and also based on the criteria just to pull the SIG anyway if we were to upgrade the categorical for wind.
Hate to interrupt you guys, but I thought I'd tell you that it's snowing pretty heavily in my area.
I bet.
Wait, what?
Oh wait, it is.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah,
let me
go
check.
outside. Yeah, it's
Keep it.
What's your general area?
I'm not going to say
know.
specifically,
Like
but it's
general.
outside of
Yeah,
Chicago.
Yeah. General. Oh, okay. Okay, I was just wondering. Yeah, I do the same thing. I was just wondering in general.
Yeah. But holy crap.
Nice.
Um,
Oh yeah, sorry to interrupt, but I literally just checked the radar. I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, it's snowing a lot.
yeah.
Yeah, you can keep that, Pat. We have enough in New Jersey.
Oh, no, you don't,
Oh,
Tony.
wow.
Get out of here.
Okay. All right. So in the meantime, though, we talked about severe weather. Ultimately, the big question I have for you guys and you guys is, what do you think is going to the SPC going to do? And I know it's a little arbitrary and it's a little bit not. I wouldn't say it's the best practice to kind of predict what the SPC is going to do, but it's Valentine's Day. I want to have a little bit of fun with it. What do you guys think the SPC is going to do?
I do think that the damaging wind threat will either do two things. One, it will be a much larger 30% because that line is just amazing on the models. A lot of models have one in a really good line,
Yeah.
or they're just going to do maybe 45 seconds, like Brendan said, communication, and plus you never know with the cold front, and that's not even counting for what if the dry air goes away a bit tomorrow and the line is able to
Exactly.
do
Yeah.
straight line. Another damaging straight line wind that is technically not severe. SPC won't count for this, but I like to count for this.
Sure.
Is the wake lows that might form behind our mesoscale lows that develop. Kind of like an MCS, that can happen.
All right.
So there's multiple, and James Mann said, in saturated ground like we're going to have tomorrow, it only takes 40-mile-per-hour winds to knock a tree down
Yeah.
and cause damage.
Yeah.
Good point.
In saturated
Mhm.
grounds, absolutely.
Yes. So,
I
and
think that-
areas in Kentucky and Tennessee will have that problem, Pat, because you have a high risk of flooding that's to enhance.
Mhm.
So, I mean, they're going to have tree and power line problems tomorrow.
What's up, Tony?
You know what? Since it's Valentine's Day, I'm just going to throw it out there. I think they're going to show us some love tomorrow and give us a moderate.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Okay.
I'm thinking wind driven for
Uh,
everything. It's just, the wind is
I
really
think
the
the-
big
Oh,
factor
I think
in
the-
all
let
this.
Kitten go. Let Kitten talk. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I think anything that they do issue is going to be wind driven. But again, as mentioned earlier, it's all going to depend on morning observations.
Absolutely.
So-
Those 12Z ops will be very important.
So,
Yeah.
but honestly, if they do enhance to moderate, I think it'll be wind driven more than anything.
I agree.
Yeah, and I'll also agree with that, Pat. I mean, pretty much echoing the sentiment that I had before. I'll also just make kind of another comment too. I think actually Tristan brought up a really good point about what James Spann mentioned. Don't be surprised, folks, because I want to get ahead of this story, Pat.
Sure.
Don't be surprised if when this wind event does take place, just talking wind by itself, that we see a ton of wind damage reports on the SPC page in areas even outside of the enhanced. And it's because it will not take much to blow down these trees. So before anybody says, oh, it didn't verify, well, hold on a minute. A lot of these trees, especially wind damage, if there's already been rain prior, right, you would then it wouldn't take much to blow down these trees, like Tristan said. So don't be surprised, folks, if that happens. And don't be
Yeah.
quick to jump down the SPC's throat, because there's likely a reason as to why they're so outside the enhanced. So
Yeah.
just want to make that comment. Otherwise, yes, I'm actually going to go ahead and say that this event stays enhanced. I actually don't think they will upgrade the moderate. That's just more of a, me being a hypothetical guess. I think that the dry air will be present, but I also think that, to me, it's tough. I think they just keep the enhanced, and
Yeah.
if anything, they'll leave. I think they have a 10 sig tour guys right now, technically, right? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
10 sig.
10 sig tour. They'll probably leave that. But yeah, I'm just gonna say enhance. I don't think they upgrade it.
Yeah. In the meantime, we actually got some new viewers here in the stream. Thank you for joining. Be sure to like the video, the stream, and subscribe to the channel if you are new. We're going to be continuing to talk about the severe weather and the winter weather that is going to be coming in the next few days. But Brendan, did you want to add anything else?
No, that was it.
Okay. All right.
So basically, Brendan, we're not going to get any love out of the SPC.
You're going to get enough love, and unfortunately, it's going to be some tough love from the SPC, because I certainly know that the Gulf and folks down there certainly don't want to feel any love from the SPC, because it usually means severe weather is going to happen.
Yeah, so
so
I
you know.
take a look at the
I
Emperor.
will say that
I'm assuming it's for
scattered the
Florida.
news
Yeah, looks like you're gonna get a line of thunderstorms. I don't think it's gonna be severe unless you're in the Panhandle, maybe Gainesville, north, or like further south. I'd say is like Orlando, but that's about it. Someone was talking about that because there's some Florida people here. But go ahead.
Yeah, I would even say the Panhandle, to kind of echo what Pat said.
Yeah, I think Gainesville realistically is the furthest south the severe threat
Yeah,
goes.
the further south you go. Yeah, I mean, we could have some. I think it's going to be mostly limited to some of those, sea breeze, popcorn thunderstorms for Orlando, or maybe some residual, breakup of the line above it. But I would say for folks in the Panhandle, Panama City, like you said, up towards Gainesville, I would definitely keep an eye on the weather.
Am I crazy, or do I see something that no one pointed out? Hold on, let me.
You can take a quick look at that. I'm gonna go ahead and give my prediction because I haven't yet. I'm gonna go on the conservative side and say they stay enhanced for 2 reasons. Yes, the cape is better, but and the shear is definitely looking better. But depends on the cold front and how fast it's going to be moving through, and it also depends on how far north the cyclone develops. And right now, I'm not confident that the cold front's going to really slow down that much for anything discrete to happen. And I also think that there's going to be too much dry air entrainment based on all the data I've looked at for it to really warrant anything more than a 30 sig. So ultimately, I'm staying enhanced with that. The other reason is because, like I said, the cyclone development and where that rain snow line is, because this is all intertwined right here. This is a very big cyclone that we're talking about. I don't think the rain snow line is going to be moving that far to the north to the point where more of Tennessee is going to get in the line of fire. More of other areas in the upper south are going to be in the line of fire for this either. And the reason I mention this is because ultimately what you want is you want that as much Gulf moisture as possible to get into that area of severe weather. And yes, there's still going to be a lot of it, but is it going to be enough to really warrant anything more than a 30 sig? I don't think so. But hey, I could wake up tomorrow and eat my own words for that. So, well, you never
And,
know with these things. What's up?
There's some new information that might have already said eat your words. Unfortunately,
Okay.
I'm looking at
Wait,
the
what?
Weather Prediction Center, and remember how we said the cold front was going to be fast?
Yeah.
At 00Z, it's still in Arkansas, and there's now a mesoscale low in Texas, a mesoscale low in
Yeah,
Arkansas,
I'm looking at the surface
and a low
analysis.
that helps confluence in the Tennessee-Arkansas border going into eastern Texas. The cold front is not as fast on the Weather Prediction Center. If you look on the SPC, Brendan, you can correct me on
I
this.
don't even
Doesn't
see
it
a
look
cold
little
front
more
on
in forecast?
WPC. I don't even see it.
It already looks a little bit more negative tilted than what the models want.
Oh, good point. Because sorry I had to interrupt, but the NAM looks. Wait, never mind. I thought the NAM took a more negative to the trough on the 0Z, but it looks about
HRR
the
did
same.
too.
I don't.
And
Wait
the
a minute.
Alright, well-
Yo, hold on. Sorry, I'm looking at the WPC surface analysis right now. There's not a cold front in Arkansas. It's in Oklahoma,
No,
Texas, and New
the future
Mexico.
cat. It's the 00Z Sunday.
Futurecast.
I'm looking
Oh.
at
Oh,
the
0C Sunday. Oh, you're looking at the
Yes.
modeling. Okay, my bad.
I'm looking at the fronts part. That's the surface analysis. And the cold front still looks a little slow. It does. That's interesting. It highlights the confluence area really well too.
I'm
I
checking
wonder if
this
prefrontals
compared
will have
to
a better
12Z.
chance. I wonder. We'll see. I don't like when a cold front slows down and they want prefrontals. No. That's normally a bad sign.
Oh, this is
see.
an issue right here. This is an issue. I'm looking at this right now. It looks like the cold front has slowed down just a little bit. Little
That might
things
be
like
enough.
that, at least according to her,
Make
little
a
things like
Big
that
difference.
are a bit can make
Mhm.
huge differences.
Yep.
That's a problem.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's not just the her, it's on the SPC too. The
Yeah.
SPC, I'm looking at the upper error, the 500 millibar analysis. Looks a little bit more negative than what they wanted earlier.
Yeah.
Brendan, you could correct me on that. It looks a
Oh,
little more.
I agree with you. I'm nodding along. I agree.
He agrees. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I
Look,
agree, Tristan. I think, but again, no. Nothing really to add for me on that. I definitely concur with that. I guess the only thing that I would say is, Pat, as you said, these small changes can lead to significant,
Consequences. Yeah.
significant, changes in the forecast, right?
Yep.
So, of course, morning obs are still important. Nobody here is disagreeing with
No,
that.
of
but,
course not.
but these
Brandon, let's just
that
throw
is
out the morning obs, man. We don't need those. 0Z's fine.
nah. Let's do the most sacrilegious thing in meteorology and let's just jump right into models.
Yeah.
Not even talk about the reserve.
Okay.
But I think, I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this, guys. There's, when I went to, and by the way, I graduated from NIU with meteorology degree
Nice.
this past year, as you all know. And the one thing that they teach for those folks watching in meteorology is the 20-minute rule, right? At least at NIU they did. I think Valpo does the same thing, and other
Yeah.
universities across the country, where when you're doing a forecast discussion, the first 20 minutes, you are not allowed to jump into weather models. You need to talk about the observed, from the top
Yep.
down, from your upper level jet down to the surface. And if you do, they start throwing things at you if you jump right into the models. And it's the whole point of it is to not jump into the models. You have to look at the observed. Everything
fact.
that all folks have talked about tonight in this call, wonderful example of that, right? Notice like we didn't jump into the models and I would say, Pat, I'll be careful with my words here because we are on a live stream.
Sure.
But for others out there that are communicating the weather on different mediums, there are folks that do have a habit of doing that, and you got to be careful because
Oh,
weather models
yeah.
are not they're not a silver bullet. They are not they do not tell the full picture. You really need to see the observe like we've done tonight. So I'll leave it at that.
Sure.
What I like to do, and I don't know if this is a good habit, is I like to compare the models to the Weather Prediction Center forecast and the analysis then.
Yep.
And I like to see satellite trends. That's
Yeah.
what I normally like.
Yep.
Absolutely, I agree with that 1,000%.